See if it works.
Let's see what happens. I mean, let's see. Hey, everybody.
Hey, welcome to our first YouTube stream.
It's great. You got YouTube, you've got Facebook, you got Periscope on Twitter. You're kind of everywhere.
I know. YouTube was kind of hard to configure for like their content streaming on there. I have to say, I'm like, it was definitely easier.
Yeah, I do a lot of YouTube watching because that's how you learn how to be a farmer. I mean, these guys are in the middle of nowhere. Then they show their set. They got this big, giant setup and video equipment. It's like, no, we just want to stream live. The only thing is I don't have any idea how people are watching. I don't know how this is hooked up. So you got me. Have you opened up the YouTube to see?
I haven't, but I'm hoping that people will just tell us if they're seeing it in the comments.
Oh.
It's a little bit different on StreamYard for the.
Yeah, it's up. It's up. It's on YouTube. So I don't know. 58 people are watching. So hey, everybody.
All right, good. All right. Well, we've had some gripes from people who like are like Facebook haters.
Well, apparently in Australia, we're not live. Facebook won't put us up.
Yeah, so we're going to try and mix it up a little bit more and do some different platforms. We also, now that we have a channel, we can, if we do something on one of the, like on Facebook, Chuck is telling me that it's possible to
migrate them over. So
yeah, so it's not too hard to do that. We'll do that for the stuff we're doing on Facebook now.
Well. Just download that Facebook and upload it there. So Greg, we had an eventful, crazy freaking day.
Like my head's spinning with all the stuff that's happening today.
In all four of the pending, I mean, we're doing 5 pending cases.
Our litigation, but also with this immigration bill dropping and with this prosecution memo and all these things.
Wait, there's an immigration bill? What the heck?
Yeah.
The good news about the immigration bill is it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So, I think we could probably, I think we're going to see pieces break off, but there's a lot of good stuff in there. As you noted, there's stuff in there.
I think there's enough Republicans that we might start seeing some small immigration bills happening this year.
I think I think to predict that DACA will pass, I think is a pretty solid bet. I can't imagine. Really, bring it to the floor, Schumer. Let's see what happens. Let's have
the thing is, even if they're, I don't know that necessarily that's the bridge that they're, I forget the phrase, but that they're going to die on or whatever for Republicans on like opposing DACA or
when 80% of Americans.
I'm not so sure that they'll use their filibuster power on a lot of these things that.
I don't think they can. If they do a clean DACA bill and a clean TPS bill, and maybe even a clean legalization bill, I don't know. I
think they could do a skilled worker bill too, and it's just, or break it up. Even that bill can probably be broken up.
Well, if we took these provisions that really came out of, for example, S386, that solved the issues of S386 without the damage of 386, which I think this does a really good job of.
Yeah. I bet you if
Mike Lee, why he won't support it. That would be a good question.
I think if Durbin decided to like push the Relief Act or something like that, which has a lot of this, not everything, there's not a perfect overlap with this. But I think something like that actually could survive any filibuster.
I think some of these provisions are better than the Relief Act, actually.
The
idea that nobody gets counted against the cap if they waited longer than 10 years.
Yeah.
That's a great, really, why would they have to be?
The visa section is great.
Yeah.
People that are abroad that are wanting to bring their family members over while they're waiting on an employment-based or a family-based green card could bring them in and have them on a temporary visa.
I think what we learned with the last time we had a V visa, most of those people are actually here, or a lot of them certainly are. So from at least those from Mexico, a lot of them are here, and that's where the big chunk of the waiting period is. The others are Philippines, and the rest of them are random around the world.
All right. Well, let's talk about the things that we're not happy with the administration and why we're suing them and what's still going on there. You can start with today's news on Aker Gomez.
All right. Let's talk about Gomez Aker. Today was the hearing with Judge Mehta about whether or trying to preserve the visas issued. So it was this hearing wasn't about any other issue other than preserving the visas that were issued in September or maybe slightly before that. Because as we know, we think about 800, Greg, have expired. We think by March 15th, another 1,500 will expire. And of course, by the end of the month, end of March, all 7,000 will expire. But why we picked March 15th is because if PP 114 is not lifted by then, any Schengen folks can't come because they got to do the whole 14-day wait somewhere else. And so many have that happening in the middle of March. The government today said a couple of surprising things. One, hey, we're going to conclude our review. Not that this is for the first time they said, we will conclude our review by the end of February. All right. Doesn't mean anything. And my understanding from some of the sources I have been able to, that they have been concerned about the current unemployment rate and the optics of bringing in 500,000 people on visas. That although there aren't 500,000 with visas, they would have to trickle out. So over the course of the year. So, and the reality is the unemployment rate, while at 6%, the reality is it's not. There are tons of jobs that can't get filled. So,
well, my position on that is, it's like you can make the same argument about DACA. You can make the same argument about all these other programs, which they don't seem to have.
And it fails to account for the fact 10% of these people are going to create jobs for the rest of them. So, I mean, who is your economist? Borjas? Come on. It's not going to create jobs. So that's one. That was a big deal. But I think we did an effective job, especially I think Rafa and Curtis did an effective job. And the reply say, look, and you noted, this is like Lucy in the football. Now, everybody outside the United States is going, Lucy? And how is she playing soccer and why? This is such a
Charlie Brown was all over the world.
Yeah,
I know that is true. I have seen comic books, Charlie Brown strips in other languages. I know.
Okay, well, Google it if you don't know. Lucy in the football. But basically, it's like they just keep saying the same thing, dating back to December. All right, after the election. And I think Curtis did a good job. We didn't really have a chance, Rafa and I, to speak today because the judge, the second thing we learned from the government was at least one consulate has granted NIEs to DV 2020 visa holders. And many other consulates have said, oh, you can't get those. That's barred. You're barred from that. Right. Their official policy was you're barred from it. And then he says something like, well, we're looking at expanding or something. I just told everybody on Twitter, go apply for an NIE so we can file another pleading with the judge in a couple of weeks. They've been denying all these NIEs. So what started out today, which is really important, it was our motion. It was the plaintiff's, the visa holder's motion. And the judge normally would start with us. What is your position? Explain it to me. The moment he said, government, I want to start with you, that's when you know, one, don't talk too much because the judge is leaning in your favor. So you don't talk yourself out of relief because you're likely to do that if you talk too much. And two, let's see what the government has to say. And basically, the judge wasn't buying it. And he said something very important. First question was, if I don't grant this relief and all these visas expire, does that mean the case is over? Nobody has standing. And the government hemmed and hawed. And finally, the government said, yes. And that was like, bam, it was over at that point because that's the purpose of the All Writs Act that we were filing under, was to preserve the court's jurisdiction. So that means we're going to win. The judge is going to do one of the following things. And that's why at the end, I know Rafa and I wanted to speak. I mean, Rafa, he unmuted himself, I saw at one point. And, better to shut up when you're winning. All right. Whether or not you think that everybody else did a good job, just let it go. The points got across. So here's the one thing the judge will do, in my opinion, and I think he may do by tomorrow, is he will say that everybody that has at least a currently valid visa, we'll get back to the others that have expired in a second, your visas are preserved. That means whenever I issue a final ruling on the case, and if I rule in your favor, you can come in without having to go back to the consulate. Government was trying to say that he couldn't do that, but he clearly can. And the judge got that. I think for the first time, he realized he actually could do this. Now, we are filing, the Gomez folks, another order which says that he will preserve all of the visas, even those that have expired already. All of the visas issued after his order on September 4th are preserved, not just the ones that are currently valid. So I think he's going to do that for sure. I think he's also going to order the government to go back and look at your NIE stuff because it's arbitrary and capricious. The way you did it. Oh, look at that. See if you got questions.
Well, no, I want you to see this one because this is something that I wasn't aware of.
Your government attorney promised to. Well, that's the same thing that happened.
No, this is a little different. This is saying that they were promising that there won't be an extent the review. Not just that there would be a review, but that they would actually have a decision by that time.
Well, that's what our lawyer said today. That's the same thing government counsel said today. That was the difference between his pleadings, which just said we're reviewing it and we hope by month's end. And today he said by month's end. He actually said that in the hearing. That's why I made that a point once. I'm glad to see the government's being consistent around the United States. So we've got, those are the two things that happen. And the judge, I think, will order the visas preserved, which are vitally important. But the key present question that Judge Maynard brought up is, what if PP goes away? Can I order those people with expired visas to come in? And that's where he was a little waffly. And our new proposed order to him, which the Gomez folks have, I think, finalized, is yes, he can. But we'll wait and see. Because if the government cancels PP 114 on February 28th, which they may or may not do, then, okay, what about people, you need 2 weeks in Croatia or Mexico. If your visa is only valid till the 14th, you're screwed. All right, so we are cognizant of that issue, and we're protecting. We're also, and that's in Gomez. We are also protecting you and have argued this in Anunciato. Mm-hmm. So, which will get us. So that's Gomez, Aker. That's where we are. I think we will have a decision tomorrow, and I feel very good about.
No, and Aker, not in Anunciato is a different story as far as how fast it's going to be on that.
So, in the Anunciato case today, right before the hearing in Gomez, the government lawyer, without calling us, sent a letter to the court that said, hey, we will have a decision on 114 by the end of February. Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you. But the important part about that is it let us file a response because the government was reporting on what happened. So we then got to report on what happened. And we were able to once again emphasize to the court the urgency, the number of visas that have expired since the hearing, who's expiring shortly, where that. So we were again, because either one of these judges can preserve visas, but only in Anunciato can they let you in if the judge will strike down PP 114. And again, Greg, do you know why he's waiting? I don't know why he's waiting.
No, we don't. And
you can't answer that question.
Everybody's mad, obviously, but it is what it is.
Oh, we can see comments here. How cool is this? This is awesome, Greg.
Yeah, right here. All right. We'll get to the comments, I think, after we've just gone through the inventory of these.
So we've got Anunciato, and we were able to emphasize again, please, Judge, please issue a decision.
I posted a link to that letter that we sent to the judge today.
Yes, and I did too on the Twitter machine. We put that up as well. All right, so that's Anunciato. Then, just before we went on the air, in our O1 visa case, now there's not a lot of people here that are on the O1, but there were people that are people of extraordinary ability, whereas the Biden administration would call them non-citizens of extraordinary ability.
Right.
And we'll get back to Israel in a second. Non-citizens of extraordinary ability. Hey, all the new plaintiffs can now say they're plaintiffs. So we have sent out to you on our Signal group what you should say and the emails you should send to the consulate. So that's a victory, which I am celebrating today for another 17 plaintiffs to get their visas to come into the United States. And last but not least, Greg, is the Milligan case.
Yes, Milligan.
Why don't you give us an update on Milligan?
I've been spending a lot of my time for the last couple of weeks. So We are getting ready to file our a couple of motions in Milligan. One is to add a round 3 of plaintiffs, and this will be by far the biggest round of plaintiffs that we're adding, even though we were limiting it to just Schengen and travel ban countries, so South Africa, Brazil, Iran, China, EU, Ireland, UK. They will be in there. We will be adding approximately 400 couples. Hopefully tomorrow, we've been working drafting. There's just like a lot of that. So we've had about 10 people that have been involved with that over the last week or so, as far as a lot of, but that's hopefully tomorrow. So that will be, the other part, there's 2 parts to what we're doing. One is we're filing the motion to add plaintiffs. The second motion is
before you go there, which the government likely doesn't have any objection to.
Yeah, we're not feeling. Yeah, we've had conversations. We're not seeing them as likely pushing back on that. And then the second motion is going to deal with one, adding South Africa, which is new since the last time, and 2 is to make the order universal, so that we don't have to. So this should be the last round of this, because hopefully if the judge grants that, it will be, our plaintiffs will be prioritized, but then everybody else will benefit from the order, which will hopefully say that K visas, at least for this, it would be nice if it was all visas, but at least K visas cannot be barred by Section 212F. We're also discussing with the government some solutions, including NIEs and that kind of thing. But part of it's going to depend on where the administration's positions are, which are not clear at this point. So that's about to happen on Milligan. With respect to round 1 and 2 plaintiffs, one should know. I mean, we're hearing from a lot of Manila plaintiffs. We feel your pain on there. We got some interesting documentation from the consulates as far as things that they're sending out by email and things that they're telling you guys. And it's our intention to make sure that the judge is quickly aware of some of what's happening in that regard, because it seems like they don't have an in-house counsel or anybody at Manila that's telling them what the law actually is, or which proclamations actually impact K1s in there. So that's that with respect to Manila, that's number 1 on our list of problem consulates right now. Rio is getting better, although we know that with Rio, that although there's been some movement, we still are not seeing the flow of Rio appointments and people coming in that we know people want to see. But at least there's some, they're not snowing you anymore as far as telling you that they can't do anything. And there are a few others. Montreal is another one, but we are well aware of which consulates are ignoring you guys. Thank you for filling out those update forms. They're very helpful. And we will, as soon as we file round 3, I have a form for the round 3 plaintiffs that I'm going to be sending out. That's a different link than round 2. That'll help us more easily keep track of things. So look for that. So Chuck, I think that's all I have to say on Milligan.
Yeah, I think that's about right. And we do appreciate those that have shared their audio files of conversations with Manila. We do have one Manila person who got approved today or yesterday. Somebody got approved yesterday in Manila. But Montreal is the one that puzzles me. Montreal has always been, in my opinion, a problematic consulate, no matter who works there. Rio, I think, has been at least open. They are... they keep talking about how long the mail is taking to get there. Some package apparently FedEx can't find or whatever. But at least they're responding with very specific responses, unlike other places which give you a generic, we're not working on these visas. And for the non-banned countries, places like Cairo, who are simply just not issuing visas, that's something we have brought up to the government, but the government simply just is like, well, they're not part of the case. They're not banned. That's why we hope when we go back with this motion, that will be expansive and reset that at the consulates.
All right, Chuck, do you want to, are we done with the updates? You want to do some questions?
I think we got a question here. First one's at 6:01. These scroll through so fast, but there's one, Cordero Lloyd. Can you find? There you go.
Okay. Use the name of the person.
Well, it's not suspended. That's not the word you're looking for. It is, the visas are basically frozen in time and remain valid until the judge makes a decision, and then for another 60 days. So that's actually the worst. We're going to win this case, okay? We are. We're going to win this case. So that means if that's all the judge does is freeze the visas, and then he issues a final decision in June, if it takes that long, it shouldn't take that long. We should have asked today about the briefing schedule for the rest of the stuff. But that means you'd have 2 more months to come into the United States without having to spend more money on visas. All right, back to you from there. Hello, gentlemen. Judge made reserve the visas. What would happen if the final decision? The government's not going to win this case. He's not. They're not going to win this case. Can people with valid visas enter? Absolutely. The ban is rescinded. Is it next week? Well, remember, they're going to take every bit of the next 10 days. This is the government we're talking about. So about a week and a half. But yeah, you can enter the country then. There was a question before this, Greg, about individual mandamuses in non-banned countries. That would be a writ of mandamus. You can file that. There's no harm in doing that. But I would suggest you wait a little bit while we file this other motion to try to expand the Milligan order beyond the Schengen countries. That might be your best option, because all that's going to happen.
By the way, I assume this question is about K1s.
Yeah, I'm assuming it as well. Because if you file an individual mandamus right now, you will probably have to file it in DC, and it will be consolidated with our case. So, I would just tell you to save your money right now. All right,
let's keep moving on. So this is what we were talking about before. So we're talking about Judge Boasberg and asking him to make our order universal, as opposed to just to name plaintiffs and basically just order the government to start adjudicating K1 visas. I think there's a pretty good chance, because the judge he's already said it's illegal, and he's already at one time had assumed that it was universal on the order, and then it didn't make it at that point. But I think he will after this. So I think the odds are good that we're going to see that, and we'll have to see. But I'm relatively optimistic. Chuck, I don't know about you.
I remain very optimistic as part of this. I was looking at the next question because it's a really good question about NIEs. Because I said, based on what the government said today, hey, they've granted NIEs when they said they wouldn't, then every DV visa holder should file for an NIE. Just overwhelm them. Heck, if you're going to state public, and you know why he did that, was to say, oh, look how nice we are. We have granted NIEs. Even though when we told everybody else not to apply 3 months ago for the NIEs, or 6 months ago for the NIEs, and even though on our website it says you can't get an NIE. The standard for the naturalization waiver is basically, are you a healthcare worker? Do you have a business emergency or a family emergency? It's very vague. That's the problem with the NIE. It's so vague that it's meaningless.
Yeah. There's one that's like just sort of an economic argument that, on there. It's really whatever I think the consulates want to do. All right, Chuck, what's the next one you want?
Whatever one you want. Preserving the status quo is just, that means you have DV 2020, but you'd have to wait until the final order. That's what the status quo means. You don't lose your visa just because it's beyond the expiration date. That's what status quo means.
All right, we got a couple about the NIE. So this is another one just about a consulate that's telling them that they're not.
Really? Here's what you do. You go back to the consulate and you tell them that today the government lawyer said that state is issuing NIEs and that you would like one.
Or DVs.
Yeah, for DVs.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I haven't done a lot of NIEs for folks because most of my folks are in the United States. Again, if your dad is sick, they have serious health issues, they need to get over here, you're caring for them, Your wife is sick. I mean, there's lots of reasons. I'm really lonely. I can't afford 2 households. You can make any argument you want. I mean, I will just tell you, the best arguments I have seen have come from people that have hired lawyers to do it. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. That's where the best arguments have been. Got our K. What? Yeah.
But I just
Emma, that's awesome. That's actually pretty good for London. I mean, London, you know, they've been tough, but they got them all done. That's a good sign.
Good job. All right, Chuck, you got another one you want to?
The next guy, Saint Sent, right below Emma. Yeah, I remain convinced we're going to win. I mean, I think we have a great case in Anunciato.
Yeah, Anunciato. I mean, a lot of people think, well, if the government lifts the bans, that case is over. But it's actually the DB 2021s have a real problem.
Yeah.
They just lifting the bans alone are not going to solve that problem. We're almost halfway through the fiscal year,
and that's why we requested that the judge order they all be preserved.
Yeah, so we're going to get to September, and we're only going to have, I bet, a quarter of a DB
at the most, and we were not going to let the disaster happen again. The great thing about Anunciato too is the judge retains jurisdiction, so we don't have to file another lawsuit. We can come back in and say, Judge, they left 25,000 visas on the table, 40,000 visas on the table, and they did it on purpose.
Yeah. So we're not going to, when these bans get lifted, which they may in a week or so, we're not going to forget about you guys in the DB categories that are basically screwed up to get visas by September. We're well aware of the problem. We know it's going to be a problem. There's just no way that they're going to adjudicate all these green cards by then. So,
can you scroll down to Kermit the Frog?
Where's Kermit? Tell me what time it was posted. Wait, where? Oh, here it is. Okay.
So, any news about the Dublin consulate? I know we have a couple people who have gotten visas out of there. I know that.
Yeah, Dublin's been. I'm watching the update forums, and we're still Dublin.
I know we specifically brought them up to government council this week. So.
Yeah, we don't have any news on that. We know that Dublin, the lockdown in Ireland has been causing a lot of problems for processing there. So it's on our list.
All right, we got the next one about Manila. We talked about Manila already. Michael, if you've only sent one email, you should send more. Send every couple of days, reminding them who you are. Again, we're trying to establish the non-responsiveness of the consulate. I like Elizabeth. Go right below Michael. Go back up.
Hold on.
I think this is a legitimate reason, Elizabeth. I think it's absolutely legitimate for an NIE. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's see. Kyle Chappell. Can your congressperson help? Absolutely.
Yeah. It's look, it's one of these things with the Congress. It's a little bit hit or miss. It depends on whether the congressional office is sort of treating it as a the kind of thing maybe where I think I've said it, Chuck, to you before, when your congressman or your senator personally gets involved, all of a sudden that's the best case. But even if not, if you have somebody who's really experienced and a little bit tenacious and doesn't take no for an answer, that's the best. If it's just basically checking in with the consulate and saying, hey, what's happening with this person? And they get basically saying, we're just waiting and, we're just working through our workload, which is the response they're probably going to get. That's probably what that's the response you're probably going to get from a congressional office. But there are some gems out there that are working in these offices that sometimes can get you results, whereas other offices don't.
We have one here who works for our new Senator Raphael Warnock, who previously was with Max Cleland and Johnny Isaacson and Kelly, what's her name? Who has name I forgot at this point.
It's not always party that matters.
No, these guys they're not party people. They are like fix this problem people.
And you're right. We've seen some of these congressional folks that are immigration staffers or good ones get hired up by both parties depending on who's available.
So the next one, can we be hired to help with NIEs? Yeah, you can hire our law firms to do this. You just call, make an appointment. We're out there. You know how to find us. Britt Simon. I love hearing from Britt Simon, who
Britt was listening in on the hearing and had some comments regarding what Judge Jen had to say. I don't know if you
put him up. He's
might
next right there.
and there's too many. I can't find things now.
He's right below CW. He's the next one down, right where you were. He's just the next one.
Okay.
All right.
There you go.
Yeah. So that's what we're really focused on is we need all these visas. I feel confident that we will get all 55,000 of these visas reserved because the bad faith of the government, it's all about their bad faith. They know from 5 other cases that they can't use 212F to not issue visas. They know that.
Yeah, we're actually hearing for some other groups that are wanting us to litigate on some new visa categories as well. I mean, I'm hoping the administration at some point gets the message that you're going to lose every time you get sued on this issue. So it's time to move on.
My theory on that is that no president wants to have less power. Even though if I'm not mistaken, in the U.S. Citizenship Act bill, there was a limitation on 212F.
All right. So if you don't want to lose on this issue and assert your power, then just make NIEs so broad that they basically resolve the issue without you having to lose.
Make them the same standard as the visa. There you go. That would be good. Let's see. NIEs for K1s. You can do NIEs for K1s. I don't know if they'll accept them, but I think there's no reason not to ask. And if we go back to the judge and say when we have a hearing in that, because we're gonna have a hearing on this whole idea of expanding his ban. I said, Judge, they have this thing called an NIE, and they refuse to give it to these people.
They are right. Now, obviously, you're right about that. Although I will tell you that it's really only been a couple of consulates where we've seen NIEs being issued for K1s.
Switzerland and Bern and somewhere else. I forget where. Yeah.
On there, so don't get your hopes up on an NIE if you're a K1, but it doesn't hurt to ask.
So Kitty Cantor is asked a great question there. Been in Mexico. I don't know why you've been in Mexico. I know some lawyers told you to wait outside the country. It wasn't us. So will Judge Seaborg watch Judge Maida's order? I don't think he will. I mean, he's obviously going to know about it because the government's going to tell him whatever Judge Maida orders. But that will then give us a reason to go back to Judge Maida again and say, look, that's wonderful that they're visas, but these people's lives are getting screwed because, we need 114 lifted. So no, I think we're good there. We have an argument there. We're good. Let's see.
Frankfurt is there. I mean, they're complying. They've been pretty good about following the order.
I think when round 3 is approved, Frankfurt will hop right in, just like they did on round 2. They'll hop right into the fray.
Haven't been a problem at all.
Tia has a question. If filing both the motion to add plaintiffs and the motion to expand the declaration is a problem, no, we don't see that as a problem. The judge will not reject additional plaintiffs. That's actually the government's position. It's, he has to let you add the plaintiffs and probably not going to object. So no, we don't see that as a problem, Tia. All right. Oh yeah. I mean, if you get an NIE and your visa is valid, come on in. But one does not affect the other.
I think this is a good question. Sort of like what happens the day after, as far as if Biden decides he's going to lift it. Let's just say Biden lifts the bans at the end of the month on there. But he just basically lets them go early. Yeah, I mean, I think basically what's going to happen on family visas is there will be a significant rollover again. There's going to be a roll backwards from the employment back to family.
Because immigration isn't adjusting people fast enough.
They couldn't even issue receipts for 4 months for a lot of these people. They're doing so well in that regard. So it probably, if I had to guess, I'd probably say there's going to be a wash on there with so the people that are waiting on adjustments that they filed in the U.S. under the advancement that happened for the employment-based, who are in panic mode right now because they're afraid that their shot, I mean, they still have their adjustments, but they're afraid that their shot at getting green cards is going to go away when these numbers roll back over. If I had to guess, I would say probably they're going to be okay because they're going to get those new family numbers, and some family numbers are going to, I think that there will be some additional family numbers in next year's allotment from the employment ones that don't adjust. However, we've got a couple 100,000 of immigrant visa applications, in addition to tens of thousands of K-1s that are probably sitting there, that they're going to have to work their way through. And if you think the receipt problem that USCIS is having right now is a problem, wait till you see what happens when consulates, like the bans lift and consulates tell you it's 8 months until they're going to give you an interview, even though your date is current.
One of the things that we talked about in the Nunciato case was also about preserving the numbers for family-based cases. Yeah. I don't know what the judge is going to do with that, however.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'd like to, what might be something that would be worth looking at is potentially, negotiating to get some kind of, even though the V visa is what they're looking to do by legislation, they still have parole authority and other things that they could do. If they really wanted to give some, make up for it with these folks that have been just waiting forever, there's ways that they could allow you into the United States to file for adjustment of status from inside the United States instead of having to be separated. So that might be something that we could look at in future litigation.
Yeah, there's options out there. All right. Let's see. How will this affect Brazil? Jonathan Perez, a couple down. Again, Brazil's, for Milligan plaintiffs, they're making priority. They're considering them emergency cases, and they're requesting the files by mule. I don't know how they're not getting these files in a day, but that's what's happening there.
Yeah. All
right. Let's see. J1s. You've had a couple of J1 discussions, haven't you, Greg?
Yeah, so there's definitely an interest in the J1 community now in potentially litigating. They've kind of, I mean, some J1s got NIEs for the immigrant and the non-immigrant bans. They got them for people, au pairs that are going to COVID families and some others. But as far as J1s, the rest of the J1s weren't subject to those bans. They are subject to the regional travel bans, and they at this point don't really have any exemptions, national interest exemptions that apply to J1s like the F1s. I think actually that's not true. I think just J1 scholars might have just gotten the expansion of NIEs for the regional ones. There was it wasn't mentioned which J1s, but for the most part they're still subject to it. And I know that there's some potential interest in litigating on the regional travel bans the same way we have on the Ks, to require them to issue visas and then hopefully provide an NIE for them. So that's what I can tell you. That I've just had some discussions, but I don't really have much more to report than that.
Okay, go to the next question because I have an answer to the next question. Do not go to the border and ask for asylum. Do not do this.
Yeah.
You will be turned around because that's what Biden's doing. Do not do this. That's my public service message for today. Do not do this. In Sweden, in Sweden. Sweden's weird with what's going on there.
Well, they also are handling more than one country out of
Right.
So complicating things. All right. I don't know
the answer to that question. Who disliked the live stream? I don't know. Somebody disliked the live stream? Man, with these two guys? That's hard to believe.
No, what? Oh, we're talking about this? This one. I thought you were just talking about the Facebook gripers.
No, so somebody they said on here, who liked this?
I'm sorry. Doing our best here.
Was it me?
What's the next one?
Is the government lawyer online? I don't know. Let's see. I don't understand the fate of DVs that are still valid. Isra, I think I've explained this pretty well. One, the final judgment will be in our favor. You don't win a preliminary injunction if you're going to lose the case. And the judge will not make them invalid. He's going to extend their validity. So stop focusing on the negative.
All right, we can talk maybe a little bit about procedurally how this works on there. So, and it seems like it's a little bit different depending on where you're processing, and it also depends on whether you're filing for an NIE at the consulate versus at a port of entry on there, where the process. So, Chuck, I guess that in a lot of cases they're just being requested at the interview.
That's what you would do. Is I have them ask for it at the interview, and if they refuse to make an interview, then you say, "I'm asked for an NIE and an interview." So that's what I would do. Yeah,
but I mean, if you have the interview scheduled, come prepared with your documentation and for the NIE, which is whatever your hardships are, your story on that.
Hamza, it's actually Hamza asked a good question. If you can get to that, it's a couple down from where you are. It's a lot down from where you are. Hamza is at 638. Go to 638.
I see it. There we go.
All right. So can you get an F1 while you have a DV 2020 visa? I would say no, because to get an F1 visa, you have to show non-immigrant intent, and you literally have a DV visa in your passport. So I don't think you can do it. Greg, do you disagree with that?
No.
Okay. Let's see. You did cancel. That's a really good question. If they were going to cancel it, don't you think they would have done it already?
No, I don't know. Okay. I think that it is possible that they're going through some kind of process on there. I mean, there have been some things that they didn't do and then they did later on. I'm not so sure. I thought that the comment this week at the in the press conference was telling, where he said that it's immoral and ineffective. They said that with respect to these two bans. So that sounds to me like they may have a decision on there. But I mean, I think you're right. It's sort of like they get to things when they get to things on there.
Well, I got to tell you, the government lawyer today is going to go back to his boss and say, "Geesh, you guys need to put a fire under this, because I don't want to go back in front of this judge and we're going to get eaten alive."
Yeah, I mean, but I think that Jen Psaki comment is going to really come back to haunt them if they don't. We had a tweet from Biden from last year where he tweeted about saying these were ineffective, but to say it in a press conference like this, that something's ineffective and immoral, and then when you have the power to do something about it, you choose not to, you really can't get away with that for very long on there. And it's the kind of thing that we can quote that comment if they choose not to do anything after February 28th. I can assure you that we will be talking about ineffective and immoral every chance we get.
I want you to go to Yasmin Rodriguez, because she thinks we're ignoring her when we haven't gotten to her question, so she's asked it 7 times. Yasmin, all right.
Hello, Yasmin.
Oh, that's not yet. Well,
give us a thumbs down.
Next Yasmin down. Go down. Next Yasmin.
Okay.
All right, there she is. If you get a second motion class, well, first of all, we're not filing a class action. So all plaintiffs would get priority in the case over a universal injunction.
That's how it works. Otherwise, no one would ever sue. If they knew they know they have to do that, because otherwise you can't get a group of people that are going to fund litigation if you're going to basically say that everybody else gets to run in front of them in line.
Right. So the next question's good. You're going to love the next question, Greg. I think you should answer this question.
Why are they so opaque with their decision process on processing visas? Yeah, well, there's a lot of secrecy. That's why they don't let lawyers go to the window.
Yeah, they don't let us. Greg, now you're old enough. Did you ever go to an interview?
I did.
Yeah, me too. I used to go to Mexico all the time.
I had a Argentina. The last one I did was right before 9/11, I think.
After 9/11, no lawyers in the embassies. Boom, you're out of here.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want us to see how opaque they were.
Yeah.
And how baseless some of their decisions are, honestly.
All right. Are we? We're probably ready to wrap up.
Okay. Let's see. We got a Go to 643. We have Eltis.
I just want to say, Britt agrees with you.
Okay. All right. I'll take that bet, Britt Simon. You got it. You got it. Go up to 643. You've got one from 89 Station there. Will they speed up the interview? No, I don't think they will. I don't think they will. I think we're going to have to sue their asses again. But again, that's why Anunciato is there. We don't have to file another suit. We just go back to the judge and say, Judge, you wanted them to do it, and they're literally not doing it.
The only thing I will say is I think that, I mean, we're dealing with the Biden team who's coming in who, in theory, are are actually interested in a well-functioning immigration system, even if it's not right now. I do think we might see, even if we don't get legislation, we might see some of the things that we were trying to push through legislation in the Trump administration to speed up consular processing. I think we could see some reforms to the, temporary reforms to try and clear through the backlog, like video interviews and, other things. So I'm a little bit more optimistic that when the State Department has their team in place and things, seem to, that we will start to see some changes where they will be able to handle a higher capacity. Plus, I think with vaccinations and all that, I think that they'll be able to catch up a little bit more. So I'm a little bit more optimistic that in the spring or summer, we might start to see some changes to start speeding through some of this stuff. Now,
Greg being more optimistic than me, I'm shocked by that.
That's always always the case.
Go to Philip Kim, just 2 down from New Zealand. I just want to say, you're welcome, Philip. You're welcome. I love New Zealand. It's a great country. Why are you leaving? Let's see here. Any of the equipment? Let's see. Personal dislike might be a Trump supporter. Greg looks cold. Greg is cold. He's freezing.
I don't know what I've been dealing with for the last couple of days here in Memphis.
Greg is in Memphis is the deep south. You people
we are in a weather emergency in this town right now. We have a foot of snow. We haven't had the temperature rise above freezing in over a week. It is we don't even have snowplows here. And it's basically like we're all trapped in our houses for the next 4 or 5 days. I have electricity. That's better than my friends in Texas, but that's we're on a water boil alert right now too. On there. So that's the good stuff that's going on in my town.
Okay, at the end, we have E.K. Grove, who asked this question. If the government lifts the ban, can you travel the next day? Yes.
If you have a visa.
If your visa is valid and you comply with the shipping ban.
Get on an airplane and come on in once the ban is lifted. If you don't have if you don't have you don't need an NIE basically at that point. You still need a visa. But if you can get in on an ESTA, you can do it. All the stuff that previously wasn't available, it becomes available again.
So Renee Weaver asked, "Have you been involved in cases where K-1 visas have been issued and expired?" Yes, we have plaintiffs who needed visas reissued. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the interview, did they have to get another interview?
They didn't make them re-interview. They did make some of them do new medicals.
New medicals, but not a new interview. That's right. All right. Greg, you take any of these last ones here you want to. General Grievous is on the line here at the end.
It's a legal way to go.
We have asked in our motion for summary judgment, I explained to the judge why his number was legally wrong, was not based on accurate facts, was based on government misrepresentations, and why he should add to that number. Will he agree with me? I don't know.
Judge, here's a question for you.
The next big date for DV? Well, it's I think tomorrow. Hopefully the judge will rule, and hopefully
right on that. But I mean, as far as like things that are on the schedule,
we don't have any upcoming hearings on any DV case. We're just literally waiting for decisions at this point. The government, the judge and Judge Mehta has to reset the government's response date to our motion for summary judgment, which was supposed to be this week, and he basically he shouldn't delay it more than a week. should be next week, but we'll see. That's the next big thing coming up. We do have a hearing set with Judge Mehta on March 18th, but I think he's moved that schedule, but we don't have a date to which he has moved it.
All right. I think we should probably
Okay.
quit for now, and then we'll be back Monday on Facebook, but we'll turn that over to, we'll now move that into YouTube if you can't see us on Facebook. So that'll be Monday at 6. We'll do something similar again. And in the meantime, I am getting back to reading this immigration bill, which I will be doing for the next day and a half.
We're very grateful it's not a 2,000-page bill.
No, it's and I will have a summary up.
Yeah, the hardest part of that bill, Greg, is you have to take this book and you have to find where their citation goes to.
That's what I'm good at. That's why people like my summaries.
You got to read Greg's summaries. He's the man. Everybody have a wonderful day. It's great talking to you today.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.